so we're in the middle of our Sensei Verde project here, and as you can see, we've already done the prep work and we've got the surface primed. And so now we're at the stage where we're going to mix up our fusion pigments. And for this color combination, it's 3 colors, and we're going to use white, blue, and orange. And as you're looking at these colors, you may say that, well, these really probably don't work very well together for a kitchen countertop, but these blend very nicely. It's actually one of my favorite color combinations. And as you can see, here's the final result. So let's now put all these colors together and get to that spot. The way we do that is by mixing the colors. So for this combination, we're going to mix up 9 cups of the fusion pigment, and we're going to layer them one by one in the cup. It's a very simple process. We just take each color and we pour a little bit into the cup. So we're starting with our orange, then we'll go with white, and there is no particular order that you have to do the colors. The end result will be exactly the same. But what we want to try to do is put close to equal amounts each time. So there's our white. Now we'll go with our blue. And you'll find that as you get going here, you kind of just get into a little bit of a rhythm, and you'll find that you're putting in pretty close to equal amounts. There's nothing to mix with the fusion pigment. Everything has been done for you. These pigments will react with the hardeners that are in the epoxy that we're going to use a little bit later on, and they'll dry together. So for this system here, we're using 16-ounce cups. You could use really any size cup that you want to use, but we find the 16-ounce cups are easy to work with. And the bottles of fusion pigment are about 16 ounces as well. All right, so we're getting close to being done with the mixing here of the colors in the cup, and we're going to fill these up pretty much to the top. And we've just been alternating our 3 colors. Finish off with our orange. And then we'll add just a little bit more blue. And this is how we know that we have approximate equal amounts of our pigments in the cups, because we use 9 16-ounce bottles of the fusion pigment, and we have 9 16-ounce cups. I've used all of the pigment, and our cups are pretty much equally filled to the top. So now we're actually ready to go. You can see really already what's beginning to happen just in the cups as they're layering, they're separating. You can see like cells and different things forming in the cups. That's going to progress a little bit further as we start our next step, which is to apply the Fusion Flow resin with our base silver pigment in it. So we're going to mix our Fusion Flow resin, and for this project here we need about 48 ounces. So in order to do that, we're going to mix 32 ounces of our A and 16 ounces of our B. The Fusion Flow resin is a 2-component resin, 2-to-1. So we'll go ahead and add in our 32 ounces of part A. Just like that. We'll add in our 16 ounces of our part B hardener. Brings us there to a total volume of 48 ounces. And then we're going to add in our silver pigment that comes in the kit. And we're going to add in about half of this jar of pigment. All right, so now that we have our A and our B components in the container along with our silver metallic pigment, we want to make sure that we mix it thoroughly for about 2 minutes. You can see that the pigments mix up really easy in here. All right, so that's all we need to do for mixing up the all right, so that's all there is to mixing the Fusion Flow resin. We're going to go ahead and set our drill off to the side here. And now it's time to apply it to the surface. And the reason why we use the Fusion Flow resin is twofold, really. One, it's going to provide adhesion, and it's going to allow the fusion pigments that we mixed up in the cup to be able to flow to give us the desired look that we're going for. And secondly, we have metallic pigment in the Fusion Flow resin because a little bit of that is going to show through here and there on the surface, and it's going to really add to the whole overall look of the countertop. So this process is really simple to do. We're going to take the Fusion Flow resin. We're basically just going to pour it out like this onto the countertop. You can see how that flows already. It's got just the right viscosity to work with the fusion pigments. And we're going to take our hands now and we're going to move it across the surface just so we get a nice thin coat. Not worried about any of the edges right now, just worried about the top. And you can see just how quick this is. There's nothing to it. Let's move that across the surface like that. It's self-leveling, so over the course of the next 2 minutes or so that we're doing this, it's all gonna pretty much just level out, and all the marks from my hands will be gone. Now we could have used a roller for this. We could have used a paintbrush. We could have used a squeegee. We could have used a number of different tools to spread the Fusion Flow resin, but I find it's just so easy with my hands, and it saves me from having to buy or having to clean up another tool when we're done. So we have the Fusion Flow resin all over the top. Now it's time to get some onto the edges. So very simple process for that. Just push a little bit to the edge there with your hand, and as it comes over, just take your hand, just like that, and then push it into place, almost like we're smoothing out the edge. And you can see some of it naturally already on its own has come over the edge, so we're just going to rub that in. All right, and that's all we have to do to get the Fusion Flow resin out onto the surface. So we're going to move on to the next step now, which really is the fun part of the whole project, and that's to apply the Fusion pigments onto the surface. So I have them sitting behind me here. I'm going to grab the first cup and we'll get started. So one of the beautiful things about the Fusion countertop kits are the ability that we have to create really nice edges of our surface. So in order to do that, we always start off with our first cup of the Fusion pigment mixed on the edges, and it's an extremely simple and fast process. We're going to pour a cup and keep the pigment about an inch or so away from the edge. And you can see how quickly that is starting to already flow, and you see now how it's coming over the edge. So it'll continue to do that all the way around as we pour our first cup here on the edge. So I made it all the way around, and I still have some left in the cup. So we're simply going to continue the process with this cup until it's empty, because we know that the more volume of the Fusion pigment that we have on the surface, the better this countertop is actually going to look. We'll go ahead and we'll just pour it out until we get every little bit out of it. And check this out. This has only been on here for probably 60 seconds. And you can see already what's happening to the surface as though that Fusion pigment flows over. And it's only going to get better from here. But now at this point, we're going to get another cup of pigment. So we got our second cup of the Fusion pigment here, but we're going to do something a little bit different on this surface. Normally when we do a countertop, we choose one of two styles of how to apply the Fusion pigment. Either we do a vessel pour, which is pouring the pigment out of the cups, and we stick with that method all the way through, or we pour our Fusion pigment onto our drywall knife or blade and we put it across the surface that way. We're going to do a combination of both styles on this countertop. So we're going to do a little bit of a vessel pour in the center, and then we're going to come in and we're going to fill it in by pouring it onto the knife. So I'm going to create our pattern here. And so we'll do something just like that. I'm going to use 1 cup, and I'm going to pour some veins here, like that. So we have a few veins going here of different thicknesses. It's a little finer one. And then we'll finish it off with a real fine one here. And still a little bit left. All right, so we're going to let those veins of color there move around, and we're going to see what happens with that. And in the meantime, we'll go ahead and we'll continue on pouring some additional cups of the pigment using the blade. All right, so we're going to take our drywall knife here and our next cup of pigment, and we're going to try to a reasonable degree, follow this same pattern, but applying it with the different technique here. And we'll see how the two work together. And again, each time we're pouring off the knife, we make sure we take it right off the edge. You can see there's already some really cool things happening here. If you look, you can see some of these larger areas where some bigger drops of the pigment fell off of the knife, but you can see what happens here. It starts creating all of these cells where I poured up to it. It's now starting to blend into it to give it some really cool looking veins. All right, so there's another cup finished. I'll get another cup and I'm going to start on the other side. All right, so at this point, we're really liking the direction that the edges are heading in, but we want to make sure we have enough volume on the edges to give us a really, really nice solid look that we're going for. So let's go ahead and now add some more to the edges. And again, it's the same process here. We're going to put it right just about a half inch away from the edge. All right, and that should be enough to get us to where we want to be here in a few minutes. So we're just going to let that continue to flow. I have a little bit more in the cup, and I think what I'm going to do is add a little bit more to this center pour here. All right. And we'll go ahead and we'll just continue to add more volume here to the surface of the countertop. Now you can stop adding fusion pigment at any point. The less you add, the more of the metallic that's going to show through. We're going to go ahead though and add a couple more cups. And man, you can see even in the last 5 minutes how much this pigment has moved and has filled in so much on the surface. I love the detail here, how we did our vein up the middle and then how it just really continues right on over the edge, making it look like that's just a chunk out of a huge slab of stone. All right, so I have one more cup of pigment left, and I'm really liking the direction that this is heading in. At this point, I'm going to check my edges, and I'll make sure that I feel like I have enough of the fusion pigment on the edges, because this would be the chance to add some more if I want more, because I have one more cup left. So I'm just going to take a quick look around here, and these are looking really good, but I do see an issue here. So right on this edge here, we got some surface tension and it hasn't grabbed. So I'm just going to simply take my finger and I'm going to just dab slightly some of the surrounding pigment, and there, that's fixed. So same thing on this side here. So that's all there is to it. That's going to now continue to flow out and blend in. But as I walk around here, well, I have the same issue over here on this side. So once again, just going to dab that a little bit, use some of the surrounding pigment, and that's all we got to do to fix it. But other than that, these edges look really nice. Yeah, so this is good. So I'm not going to use any more pigment on my edges. Instead, I'm going to use it to fill in a little bit more of the top surface here. All right, so we have applied all of our fusion pigment to the surface. I'm really interested to see how this little accent vein here in the center ends up, because these pigments are going to continue to move and expand and evolve over the next 60 to 90 minutes or so. So we're going to go ahead and leave this and let it be, let it develop and do its thing. The only thing we're going to do after this point today is, in about 3 hours, we're going to have an oscillating fan that's going to sit about 6 feet away. We're going to put it on a very, very low speed just to get a very slight amount of air movement over the surface. We're going to let this dry overnight. We'll come back tomorrow. We'll see what we got, and then we're going to protect it with our countertop epoxy. So we're back the next day, and wow, this turned out fantastic. This is our Verde Fusion Surface countertop, and just look at all of the colors that this has produced. We used 3 different shades of fusion pigment, and look at all these different shades and tones that we got. We did some of our regular pour with the drywall knife, but then remember, we poured this ribbon or this vein down the center of the countertop, and that's really added a nice detail to this countertop surface. So we want to go ahead and make sure that we get this protected now, and the way we do that is with our countertop epoxy. Let's go ahead and mix up a batch. It's a real simple 2-to-1 mix, 2 parts A to 1 part B. All we need is the product, a mixing container, and a drill and a paddle. So we recommend about 3 to 4 ounces per square foot for your project of the countertop epoxy. So we're going to mix up a 96-ounce batch of that now. So what we're going to do is we're going to add 64 ounces of our part A. So there's our 64 ounces of A. And then we'll add in our B. There's our 2-to-1 mix, 96 ounces in total. We're going to go ahead and take our drill and our paddle, and we're going to mix this for about 2 minutes. All right, so that's all there is to mixing the countertop epoxy, and now we're gonna pour it onto the countertop. So we'll take the entire contents here, our entire 96 ounces, we'll pour it right down the center here. This is our ultra clear countertop epoxy, high heat resistant, and it's going to provide the protective layer for what we've done to this previously. A lot of different ways we could put it down. We're going to put this down the same way that we did our Fusion Flow resin. We're just going to use our hands. Since it's a self-leveling epoxy, our job now is just to move it around the surface and get a layer of it everywhere. And then we're going to let the epoxy do the rest of the work for us by leveling out the surface. Wow, you can already see just the detail in this and the beauty of it. Not so much worried about the edges at the moment, even though we do have some that's already dripping off the edge, which is great. But we'll go ahead and make sure that we have the entire top covered first, because the edge obviously is going to get a thinner coat than the top, so we're going to concentrate more so on the top right now. And you can see just how easy it is to move this around. We could use a brush, a roller, a squeegee, a whole variety of tools, but then we have to clean those. So to avoid that, we'll just use our hands, and we're going to accomplish the same thing here. All right, so that looks like I have a nice layer on top. We do now want to go ahead and make sure we get our edges protected since they turned out so good. I mean, check these out. Just look at the beautiful detail in here, how that metallic vein just comes right over the top. I mean, that is just spectacular. So to protect those, we're going to make sure we get some epoxy off the edge here. We can push some with our hands, and then we're just kind of rubbing it in, smoothing it out. That's going to give us the protection that we need. And these were some maybe unlikely colors that we used to create this. It was the white, the orange, and the blue. So we'll just got our last side here that we'll finish off. All right, so this is leveling out beautifully. But we do want to make sure that we haven't missed anything. It can be a little tricky to see everything from one angle, so we're kind of going to want to just look around the surface and see from the different angles if we've missed anything. This side here is looking pretty good. All this is going to continue to level out on its own, but if we see any spots that we've missed, we just want to make sure that we move some product into those areas. Okay, I think I'm happy with this. All right, so that's all there is to putting down the countertop epoxy. Now we just wait until tomorrow. We're going to come back. It'll be hard, it'll be dry, and we're going to be able to see the final result of this Verde Fusion Surface countertop. So here is the final result of our Verde Fusion Surface countertop. And this turned out absolutely amazing. You remember we did all of our prep and we had it primed with the black primer. Then we mixed our fusion pigments. We used blue, orange, and white. And then we poured it out in two separate techniques. We used the vessel pour technique to get this vein that's going up the center here. And you can see how much that's just added to the whole overall look as it mixes with the other technique that we use of pouring the fusion pigment with the drywall blade. So what a beautiful combination. You can just see how much detail really is in these fusion surface countertops. You're not going to be able to get this look with any other type of system for as little effort as it takes to get this. How easy was it? I mean, it was super easy. It was quick. It only took us really about 20 minutes to get this look. And just the detail, all the different veining. It's awesome how the metallic pigment is coming through in certain areas, and then we're getting all these cells. You can see real definition when you look at all of these different veins and how all the colors are just working well together. And this is just one of over 100 different combinations that we have on our website. Check them out and let us know which one you would like to see us do a full tutorial video on. You can put it down in the comments and we'd be more than happy to make a video on the combination of your choice. For any other information, you can check out our website at www.epoxyplus.com. Feel free to email us, contact us, or leave comments. Thanks for watching.